Life on the farm had always been peaceful, with the rolling fields and clear skies stretching as far as the eye could see. That was until the night we discovered that even the most tranquil places can hold dark secrets. It started with strange occurrences. The cows grew restless, the dogs barked at unseen shadows, and the horses refused to enter the barn. I dismissed it as mere coincidence until one evening, as we gathered on the porch to watch the sunset, the sky turned an eerie shade of crimson. Dad muttered, "Never seen a sunset like that before." Mom, always the optimist, replied, "Maybe it's just a weather anomaly." The unease lingered, but we went about our chores. That night, a series of loud thuds from the barn jolted us awake. Dad grabbed his shotgun, and we headed out, ready to confront whatever intruder dared disturb our peace. I whispered, "Could be coyotes or a bear." Mom nodded, clutching a flashlight. "Let's find out." Inside the barn, the air was thick with tension. The animals had retreated to the corners, eyes wide with fear. And in the center, we found it, an old, weathered scarecrow, long forgotten but now standing upright. Dad raised an eyebrow. "How did this get here?" I shook my head. "No idea, but something doesn't feel right." Mom was the first to approach it. She reached out to touch the scarecrow, and as her fingers grazed its tattered clothes, she recoiled, gasping. Her hand was covered in fresh, wet blood. Mom's voice trembled. "This isn't a scarecrow. It's something else." Fear crept into our hearts as we examined the gruesome discovery. The scarecrow was no ordinary one. It was a grotesque imitation of a human, adorned with real human body parts, stitched together haphazardly. We couldn't contain our horror. Dad's voice was grave. "We need to call the sheriff. This is way beyond us." As we retreated from the barn, a chilling wind whispered through the fields, carrying eerie voices that seemed to echo from the very soil itself. The farm that had once felt like home now felt like a place of nightmares. Over the coming weeks, the farm became a haunting ground. Crops withered, animals vanished, and the sunsets continued to cast an ominous glow. The sheriff's investigation yielded no leads, and we lived in constant fear, barricading ourselves inside the house every night. One evening, as we gathered in the dimly lit living room, we heard a voice, faint but unmistakable, coming from the fields. It was a woman's voice, calling out for help, crying for someone to save her. I shuddered. "Did you hear that?" Mom's eyes were wide with terror. "It's coming from the fields. We have to check." Dad grabbed his shotgun once more, and with flashlights in hand, we ventured outside. The night was cold and still, the sky an ominous shade of red. The voice grew louder, more desperate, leading us deeper into the fields. I called out, "Hello? Who's there?" Mom's voice wavered. "Please, we're here to help." But as we approached a decrepit scarecrow standing in the moonlight, the voice stopped abruptly. And then, with a sudden bone-chilling realization, we understood. The scarecrow was no scarecrow. It was the source of the voice. Dad's face contorted with anger and fear. "This thing, it's toying with us." We fled back to the house, barricading the doors and windows. But the voice continued, now echoing from all around us. It whispered our names, our fears, our deepest secrets, tormenting us through the night. By morning, we were broken, terrified shells of our former selves. The farm had transformed into a nightmarish realm, a place where the line between reality and horror had blurred beyond recognition. And as I share this story with you now, I can't help but wonder if that malevolent presence still lingers, waiting for the next unsuspecting family to move onto the farm, and if, by some dark twist of fate, they too will be drawn into the chilling secrets that haunt our land. The old farm had always carried a sense of unease among the townsfolk. It sat nestled among the rolling hills, isolated from the main road, as if it wanted to remain hidden from the rest of the world. Nobody really knew who owned it, and there were rumors, dark ones, about strange happenings there. Most folks avoided the place like the plague, but I was never one to shy away from a good adventure. It was a chilly autumn evening when I convinced a couple of my buddies, Mike and Sarah, to join me on a little exploration of the farm. The sun was setting, casting eerie shadows across the fields as we approached the rusted gate. Sarah looked around nervously, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. "Are you sure about this, guys?" she whispered, casting an anxious glance towards the decrepit farmhouse looming in the distance. Mike chuckled, his voice laced with false bravado. "Come on, Sarah. It's just an old farm. What could go wrong?" As we ventured deeper into the farm, we couldn't help but notice how everything seemed off. The trees swayed, their branches forming grotesque shapes in the dimming light. The air was heavy with an unsettling silence, broken only by the sound of our footsteps crunching through the fallen leaves. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, stopping in my tracks. It was a faint, distant sound, like a soft chant carried on the wind. Mike laughed nervously. "Probably just the wind, man. Let's keep moving." We continued on, passing by the decaying barn and making our way towards the farmhouse. The windows were shattered, and the door creaked ominously as we pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay, and the floorboards groaned beneath our feet. "What do you think happened here?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mike shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe it's just been abandoned for years." As we explored the house, we stumbled upon a room at the back. It was smaller than the others, and its walls were adorned with strange symbols, crudely drawn in red paint. In the center of the room stood an old, tattered chair, its arms stained with what looked like dried blood. I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Guys, we should get out of here. This place gives me the creeps." But it was too late. As I turned to leave, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Panic set in as we tried to force it open, but it was as if the house itself had come alive, trapping us inside. From the darkness, a low, guttural chant began to rise, growing louder with each passing second. We could see shadows moving, shifting in the corners of the room, and then they emerged, twisted, nightmarish figures with eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. "Run!" Mike shouted, and we made a desperate dash for the window. Glass shattered as we leaped through, crashing onto the ground outside. We scrambled to our feet, not daring to look back at the house. The chant grew louder, filling the air around us, and we sprinted away from the farm, gasping for breath. It felt like an eternity before we reached the safety of the main road, and the haunting sounds behind us finally faded into the night. We never spoke of that night again, but the memories of the farm and its dark secrets would haunt our dreams for years to come. The old farm remained hidden among the hills, a sinister presence that no one dared to approach, a place where the line between the living and the dead had blurred into something unimaginable